Just let me know. If you have heard about prompting, raise your hand. Okay. Any other person? If you have heard of prompting, okay, Paul, blessing. Daniel, what about you? Daniel and Onyekachi, okay. You can see we all have heard of the term prompting. We'll get to discuss that, not immediately. Let's start off the class by understanding, even though I've mentioned this before, I'll just take it again, understanding the AI product lifecycle before we jump into talking about some of the tools you use when working with AI. Um, as an AI engineer, of course. And then we would most likely touch on the aspect of setting up your work environment as an AI engineer. So I would be fast, but feel free to drop your questions in the chats so that I would, look at it, respond to you while I am explaining. Okay. So yeah, at least at this point, we already know what AI engineering is. We know who an AI engineer is. Um, Let me quickly hold on. Let's see. Mhm. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I need to pull this out because I have like tabs everywhere. So to avoid the distractions, I will pull this out and also pull up Excalibur. All right, you can take your hand down now. Thank you. Okay, so we're talking about AI engineering tech stack. Sometimes people watch me write code and they're like, oh, I mean, how do you get to set up and organize the tools that you use? So I'm just going to share this first, right? If you have written code before, or if you have not written code before, I'll get to explain some of this things. But yeah, if you have written code before, this would look easier for you to understand before we dive into talking about them bit by bit, right? Um, there's something we call observability in the world of engineering. Observability. I mean, most people, maybe you might have heard of it this way: observability and telemetry. How many of you have heard of the term observability or monitoring? Right? If you have heard of things like logging, tracing, um, yeah, monitoring. Let's say what else? Alerting. Yep, alerting. You have heard of any of these terms before? Everything falls under standard telemetry, right? Telemetry is saying, oh, I want to be able, I built something, right? I built something, we built a box, and I want to be able to fully observe what is going on with this box we have built, right? We are deploying this box on AWS, and I want to know, like, if a particular action occur, right? How do I know what occurred and at what time, right? When did it occur? Okay, so that is where you talk about logging, right? How am I able to know if this particular box is getting to a point where it's about to shut down? Maybe because there are limited resources. Maybe I deployed this with let's say 1 GB RAM. Now, of course, 1 GB RAM. I'm referring to the spec of the virtual machine or the server, right? And this is already running. It's serving about 500 users. But then, 500 users using this service, it's becoming complex, right? How do I know when it's about to go down? Or how do I even know if it shuts down, right? That's what we're talking about, monitoring. Monitoring would help us, keep an eye on this. If there's something wrong, it would alert us. If it shuts down, it would alert us, right? So that is alerting. Alerting is, the ability to have or to receive alerts when there's an incident, right, on your deployment, on your service, on your build, or on whatever deployable components that you have on the internet. Okay, so and why am I talking about observability here? Observability is kind of like the general term for describing a majority of these things you're seeing here, right? It's the general term for describing this, and that leads us to the tool you see here called Langfuse, right? I'll dive into the detail of Langfuse. There are so many tools like Langfuse. If you're building AI systems, or if you work as an AI engineer and you have AI integrations into your products, most likely you would want to, set up integration for observability. Now, mind you, AI is beyond LLM, right? Langfuse as a tool is specifically built for LLM telemetry, right, which is LLM observability, and also prompt management. Okay, so it goes beyond telemetry. It also offers a solution for prompt management. So the way you write a lot of prompts on ChatGPT, most times you might be asking yourself, oh, how do I better manage this prompt, right, in such a way? Maybe you even document your prompt on Notion. When I started prompting, I'm trying to see if I can recall the year. When I started prompting, I think maybe 2023, 2022, right? When I started taking notes of, like my prompts, writing them down. I think that was when they first released, this, what's it called? OpenAI's model. The first, I think that was like version 3. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. OpenAI models. So I'm just trying to see release year. So yeah, if you check out, so this is like the most recent one, I believe. So where if you check out like okay, GPT-3, yeah, this was 2020. I think the first time I did proper prompt management, that tool was called I believe prompt layer. I think that's still it. I think it's still existing. Yeah, yeah. They've not shut down at least. Prompt layer. There was a tool I used before prompt layer, but then prompt layer is another tool I used in kind of like doing proper prompt documentation. You see, it's a software that you can use to manage your prompts. These days I simply use Langfuse, but yeah, there are so many tools. There is a latitude.so, which is open source. You can download and deploy yourself. I love this tool. I love it so much. I think I remember teaching my younger sister how to use this tool for proper prompt documentation. Because if you don't document your prompts, you have versions for your prompts. You can test the prompt on the fly with different models right there on the platform. If you don't do this, it's difficult for you to know how powerful you say your prompt is, right? So I can come to you and say, oh, I have one of the best prompts, right? You tried it on ChatGPT, it works well, and your assumption is that it would work well everywhere. It doesn't really work like that, okay? The prompt you apply to model A, you most likely would like, I mean, you might want to tweak that prompt so it can work well on model B, right? So that's the point. We have different tools used for prompt management, and we'll get to use one of these tools during the process of learning, right? So yeah, Langfuse you see here, this is a stack that I actually shared with a developer working with me on a product. So we are building a simple AI product that can have conversations with the learner, right? So you have a learner using the platform, an LMS, and then you have like a chat widget on the side. We want to have like the user interact with the AI, ask questions, get answers, stuff like that. And yes, before we are done with this program, this our training, we're going to experiment with a simple chat interface like that I built. I would also show you how it works. I'll show you the code base, from the interface itself that was custom built down to the backend, down to the tools that were leveraged. Yeah, I've done that for different companies, including the university, and it's something that I think most of you will be interested in seeing. So yeah, not today, not in today's class. So you don't say I said I was going to show you in today's class. I have it here on my laptop, but I'll prefer to show you probably before we are done with the program, because explaining that alone will take us a while, right? And if we choose to go into that, it means we're spending like 2 hours trying to understand the code, and then most of you might give up, right? I don't want you to give up, at least not yet. Sometimes we say, oh, it's simple, it's easy. When we show you the code, you're like, this guy is very wicked. So let's get to that today. Okay, so Langfuse is a tool that we use in this particular project for observability and mostly on the LLM side of things, anyways. So we also have, I think that was not mentioned there, but it's a different tool on the application level. What I usually use for startup projects like this would be Beta Stack, or we can also use what's the name of this tool? Give me a second. Beta Stack, yeah, Honey Badger, Honey Badger. There's one popular, yeah, Sentry. On the front end, you probably want to go with Sentry, right? These ones are good for backend, right? Honey Badger is good for backend. Beta Stack is also good for backend. It works for the front end. Sentry is good. Grafana is there. I use Grafana a lot for large scale projects. But the point is, these are tools that you can use for observability. Okay, observability. On the application. Let's just say application observability. So the first one is for the LLM. LLM means large language model. We'll talk about that in the future as well. Okay, we're going to discuss this very quickly because this is the modern. This is actually what created the trend again for AI, right? In 2025, 2023, I believe, right? A very building models, OpenAI, Claude, right, Perplexity, and others. Okay, build and utilizing most of these models for different activities or different use cases. Okay, all right. So Honey Badger, I think I already listed it here. I think I did not see that. Yeah. So Honey Badger is here for backend telemetry. This is LLM telemetry for on the LLM layer, LangFuse. We have Render. Render is a tool we use in our backend. There are so many ways to deploy your backend. There are so many tools. Depending on your choice of stack, in our own case, we're using Python here. Render is very good, right? We have a lot. We have a lot of tools. You can use DigitalOcean. You can use AWS Cloud. You can use Azure, GCP. There are hundreds or thousands, yeah, of platforms that you can use. Render is cheap. Render is easy, so you don't have to do a lot of like setting up VMs. Installing the operating system like Ubuntu, configuring reverse proxy and all those stuff. You don't have to do that. And just because the program is not, a very lengthy one, we won't be going into containerization with Docker and things like that. We just want to keep it basic, right? So we'll be using Render to, deploy. And of course, we'll be using GitHub and Git. So I'll say Git and GitHub for our repos for managing our repository, right? So we'll say code versioning and repo management. Okay, so we'll Git and GitHub for that. We'll use Vercel to deploy our front end. If we have a front end to deploy, we use Vercel, and we're using Vercel here because it's free. We can also deploy our front end on Render, but let's just keep the cost low. On Render, we can spend like $5 on our backend, while on Vercel, at least for the meantime, we can have our front end deployed on Vercel for free. There are other platforms to do this as well. Netlify is one of them. Cloudflare pages, GitHub pages. There's so many of them, but we'll stick to using Vercel during our program here. Okay. Grok is what we use for managing the LLM. Now, while I was in university, we even deployed like a custom model, right? We did some fine tuning, and yes, we can do that. Right, we can deploy custom models, fine-tune them on AWS, on Azure, on these cloud platforms. But I mean, it's expensive, right? I can teach you how to do that, but we're not doing that. Trust me, it's expensive, even for just a day, right? I remember, deploying an open source model for an organization. I won't mention their name. We deployed a Meta Llama model. We did some fine-tuning there. And in a month, it was already hitting about $10,000. I'm sure you know what I mean when I say $10,000 on a model, right? So me and you will not be deploying a model, except you give me your credit card, right? And then we'll use your credit card to deploy that model. I mean, you will love the class, trust me. It will be fun, right? Maybe not for you, but for the others, okay? But for that person that gives us his credit card. All right, so we're going to be using Grok, not the Grok LLM from Elon Musk, but this is a different company. If you see the spelling, this is Grok with Q. We have the Grok with K, which is the OpenAI competition right out there. But we're talking about Grok with Q. So it's a platform that we can just create an account, select some open models and just basically run that model. So we would have like will be given endpoints and credentials to connect and use that model, right? So if you're talking about doing fine tuning and all that, I mean, it's not as flexible, but in terms of speed and in terms of accessibility, we can even use the free version for our experiments, right? And when it comes to the payment, it's also cheap, compared to deploying your own model, right? It's trust me, it's so cheap, right? It's cheap and probably, the cheapest option I have used for now for small projects, right? I have Grok running on about 5 of my personal projects, right? Different use cases, used by different clients, and I think the experience is wonderful, in my opinion, based on my usage, of course. Okay, so LangChain, we use LangChain for LLM tooling, right? So what do I mean by LLM tooling? By the way, you can actually look up some of these websites. So this is LangChain. I mentioned LangFuse. This is LangFuse. And we can choose to deploy our own version of LangFuse. I can show you how that is done because you can, right? You can deploy it yourself, or we can just use what they have on the cloud. So if I click on to app right here, I would show you, I think it's going to log me in. I have my session currently logged in. You see I have a sample project. For those of you that know use referral AI, you see I have use referral AI evals. I can click on this. Let me go down to, let's see, tracing. So if I go down to tracing, I can actually I think, okay, this is not the production version, I believe. Yeah, this is not the production version, but let me go back to like past 30 days. Try to check here. Yeah, so you see, I have some logs. This is for, yeah, this is just a simple request, right? So you see, I have a system prompt. I have some of the user prompts here, and then they make a request, and then they get a response. Everything is properly tracked here. This is going to look confusing for you right now. You don't have to pay so much attention to it. We'll get to talk about it as we keep learning. Okay. All right. So we can just ignore this for now. This is LangChain, right? And LangChain is simply a platform that you can use to better organize your code base for interacting with AI models. If you're using OpenAI if you're using OpenAI GPT model, if you're using a Llama model, if you're using lots of models, right? If you check out their documentation, you see, they have libraries and I would say the ability to connect to lots of models, right? And yeah, it makes your code even look better, cleaner, and they also have a lot of functions that would help you do most of the things you want to do. So instead of trying to do all these things from scratch, just leverage LangChain. Set up your code base, install the LangChain Python library, and you have access to basically send in your prompt, get your response in a structured way, right? So instead of making API calls, getting the response, grabbing the text from the response and maybe presenting it, these guys already have like a framework that helps you do that, easily, right? You just call that a model, right? Passing your inputs, you get your output, you set all the necessary configuration, you pass them in as parameters. Okay. Let me take you to the documentation so you see what I'm talking about. Right. So this is the documentation right here. This is the Python. So we have LangChain, we have LangGraph, right? We also have LangSmith. These are different, offering with different, capability, right? We'll get to explore them as well. So LangChain is the easiest way to start building agents and applications powered by LLM with under 10 lines of code. You can connect to OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, and more. So they're referring to the models. Yeah, and if you click on Quick Start, you see all you have to do. Okay, this is for an agent, basically LangChain.agent, create agent. So you configure your where is it? Yeah, you configure your agent, create agents, right? You select the model, select the tools. This is an example of a tool. You have a system prompt, you're an helpful assistant. So this is where you invoke the agent, right? What is the weather in San Francisco? That is SF, right? And it's able to simply make like an API call that you have configured here. So it's able to make that API call, passing the city, gets you the response, and you pass it back in here, right? So when questions come in, if you have a specific function or tool, right? These functions are referred to as tools. If you have a specific tool that have been configured, I can say, what is or how do I make a certain type of food? If I have a function or a tool with a proper API connection to a platform that teaches us how to, make food, it simply takes that as a tool, makes that API call, gives us the response we need. We'll get to look into some of these things. I mean, I hope it's sounding fun already, right? With LangChain, it's easy to, do this. If you're not using LangChain, then yes, it's going to be, a little bit more complex than this, but LangChain is already like the de facto standard in the industry. So we're definitely going to explore LangChain, and we're going to do things like this. If you're just working with a model, you're just working with a simple LLM, you want to make a simple LLM call, all you have to do is configure your key from the specific LLM provider like OpenAI, right? Once you configure your key, you set up the model, right? And then you can invoke a simple question like, oh, why do parrots talk, right? This is the response model.invoke. As you can see, you get that response from here. So yeah, trust me when I say it's quite easy. Okay, so we're going to do all this. See the options here for messaging, for tools, for streaming. We're going to explore all this stuff, right? Some of the applications I have built when it comes to leveraging LLMs, I've built applications where you can talk to the LLM with your voice, right? You speak, it responds. You speak, it responds. And we have used that to set up applications for interviews, right? Applications for education, and I would also share some of these projects as we learn, right? We'll experiment with them, we'll run them, we'll see how it works. I will explain, from an architecture perspective, how it works. Because if we choose to build things like that, maybe we can just build a very, trimmed down version, very trimmed down version. Trust me, it's fun to build. It takes time because you have to test, right? You have to test, you have to refine the prompt, you have to do, configuration and all that. Yeah. So I would also show you how you can leverage this kind of agentic, workflows to build projects for yourself. Okay, but yeah, my advice is while you're doing that, it's also good to learn, the foundation, which is knowing how to code. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to look at Git and GitHub, Vercel, Grok, LangChain, and then on this project we use the TypeScript for the backend. Of course, we can use Python, and on the front end we use the Vue and Git. You can use React if you want to. You can use Svelte. You can use Angular, whichever option is whichever option you are familiar with. For myself, even though I use a lot of frameworks and I have experience in frameworks, I always prefer to go with Vue if I'm just experimenting or building products for myself, right? Because I love the way Vue is, structured and designed. Okay. Regardless, any other framework you're comfortable with is quite good. Okay, and use Splunk here is just a service I like to use for email, right? It's quite simple. It connects with AWS and is also very cheap in terms of pricing, right? If you do, sorry, not that, use Splunk, yeah. So if you build anything around, sending emails, maybe transactional or marketing emails, of course, I'm sure you know what the pricing looks like. But when you take a look at this pricing, you see you have on about 1,000 automated emails per month for free, right? You have unlimited contacts, email from your own domain, 100,000 transaction emails per month as well for free. And when you start paying, you pay 0.001, which is not, I mean, come on, this is very cheap. You have to do the math. When you do the math, you see how cheap this is. This is the service I use for, almost anything I build today, right? If I'm not using this service, I'm connecting straight to AWS SES, right? And then this is also open source, which means you can deploy this yourself. So you can get the code base, deploy it yourself, and put in your AWS email credential, and it automatically works like your own platform. So this is what I use, and this is what I recommend you using. The pricing is very, very straightforward, right? It's an independent SaaS run by a human. Okay, so yeah, I mean, the point is, what this guy has done here is, built a platform that makes it easy and straightforward to see what your pricing looks like. In terms of if you're using platforms like Mailgun, how many of you have used Mailgun? I mean, Mailgun is a great platform. The only concern I have with Mailgun is the pricing. I don't think it's built for the market here. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people use it, right? And it's not like it's so expensive. I would just say if you're a startup, you might see it as expensive, right? So you take a look at this, you see $15 per month. You can only send 10,000 emails, right? Yeah, you see you have 50,000 emails. Anyways, this is like marketing emails, $35 a month. If you are building applications, you have like a lot of users. When you do the numbers, you see that this limit is not the best. There are platforms that are more expensive than this. So, anyways, I'm just saying that uh, yeah, you see, these guys are saying this is 1.30 per 1,000 emails. I think I would just prefer to go with the Plonk option. It's easy to configure. It simply works with SMTP, right? Very easy to configure, and the pricing is also very transparent. So yeah, let's take this off and take this off. Also take this off. Okay, so this is what the ideal tech stack would look like. Although I would also mention a couple of things. I would speak to like the engineering tech stack. We've mentioned a couple of tools, right, for different things we're doing at that point of software development. What I would do right now is to break it down into different sections, right? When you are building an actual application, you would have like what we call the foundational layer, where you touch on like the programming language, version control, containers if you're using one, just like I've mentioned. So what I want to do right now is structure them, right? So you are building up an application. Let's just put it this way: engineering um, tech stack. So first off, you are the foundational level. So the foundation. Okay, so let's call it a foundation layer. So let's just put them in layers. So you have foundation layer. This is where we talk about. I think I should use this. Yeah, let me use this. Okay, so foundation. Yeah, okay, something like this. And this is where you talk about the programming language. Okay, all right. So the next thing you're looking at would be okay. So the next thing we're looking at, and by the way, I mentioned like the choice of programming language. I think I should put them. Let's have that in a separate place. So this is going to look like this. Then this guy would look looking like this. So let's say programming language. Okay, so yes, the version control tool. So programming language, you can have an example here. So let's say Python. I think it's site, so I can drop it. Yeah. So let's say Python or JavaScript, right? The next thing you're looking for would be version control. So you can say VC version control, such as Git. It can be Bitbucket. It can even be your own open source deployed version control solution, right? Yeah, we have an open source version for this. I've used it in an organization before, so open source GitHub alternative. So I think it's called it got Git T. Yeah, yeah, I remember. So Git T. It's oh, GT, yeah, private, fast, reliable developer platform. So you can basically deploy this, and it gives you kind of like a GitHub-like environment. Trust me, it's easy to deploy this. There are platforms that you can just use one click, and we have deployed this. If I say let's deploy this now, we can literally deploy this in just a few minutes, 5 minutes if possible, right? I can introduce you to. There's this platform I love to use. Let me see if we can put it up here. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not sure, but there's this platform I love to use. You can check it out. It's called Pickapod, right? So check out Pickapod. On Pickapod, you can simply click on this and I search for Git T. So you see we have like Git T here. Once I click on Git T, I can just run this, and I will only spend $2 per month. If I scale it up a bit, I can spend like $5 a month. I have my own Git, platform, right? I can push my repositories there, manage it there. People on GitHub would not see it. It's just my private space. It's lovely. There's so many applications you can deploy here. Email services, finance services. All open source tools. Anyways, let's leave that for now. If you would love to learn more about open source tooling, I'm sure we can always talk about that in the future. All right, and apart from version control, then next is your mode of deployment, which is most likely going to be Docker most times, or just using virtual machines, right? Or using app platforms such as Render or DigitalOcean, right? So these are where this is the point for these decisions, right? I mean, you do deployment towards the end, but it's also good to make your deployment plan and strategy early on, so that you don't do things that will not be able to run on that deployment platform you decided to use, right? So yes, the next layer we have here would be the AI and machine learning layer. So AI, ML layer. Okay, so in this layer, we're talking about the choice of model, frameworks. I'll just copy this from that PDF I shared yesterday, or did for yesterday. So yeah, we have the models, the choice of models you want to use. If it's open source, I do a lot of open source. I love open source models. In fact, I can just I stopped sharing because I want to just quickly show us something. I didn't want to share my entire screen to avoid distractions. But yeah, I'm sharing now just to show you something, and then I'll take it off. Okay, so there is a tool called LM Studio, which we'll get to talk about. LM Studio is a platform that shows you lots of models. You can test them, you can experiment with them. You see, I was just experimenting with this specific Quen 3 CODA model that was launched at some point, 30 billion parameter. So I just pulled it into my machine and I was just playing around with it. So these are some of the models I have currently on my machine, right? You can see I have Mistral, um, Mistral AI, DeepSeek. You see I have Quen here, 8 billion param. I have this OpenAI GPT OSS 20B, the one that they launched recently, that they open source recently. Yeah, so this is Gemma. Okay, yeah, these are like little models. We have large models, but I'm currently running this on my machine. These might not run on your laptop. I'm using like I would say, is it the latest? Okay, I would say maybe next to the latest. Anyways, so this was the latest MacBook up until 2 or 3 months ago. This is M4, right? I think they currently have M3, but this is M4. Okay, so except you use like an M4 or M3 or maybe M2, you might not be able to run some of these things on your machine, except you have maybe, high-end um, machines like HP, these gaming PCs and stuff, right? But if you don't have any of that, it's not even a problem because, I'll show you how to deploy this online, right? Yeah, so you must not run this on your local machine. This is a tool that you would get to see, learn, and use. There is another one called Olama. So this is Olama. I also use Olama when I'm doing some tests locally. So I can use Olama to pull a model, right? So this is what the interface looks like. These are some sample charts, that I have there. These are some sample models that you can just pull and run, on your machine, right? And you can also visit Olama on the web. You can also test out some models that you find on Hugging Face. I mentioned this the other day. We'll get to look at that in the future. So Hugging Face is a platform you can search for different models. So we can say, maybe Mistral. Let me just search for Mistral or Quen. Yeah, let's search for Quen. So if we search for Quen, we'll see different. Let me search again. Quen. Yeah. So if you search for Quen, you will see different, models here. This is Quen 3, BL 8 billion parameter instructs, right? And this is the Quen page here. So you can see all their models. You can see all their models. Let's see. Okay. So this Quen 3 VL, Quen 3 Gauge. So you can see all their models from here. And yeah, models must not be LLM. We have different type of models for doing different things. If we say we want to use a model for maybe let me see, which yeah, maybe predictive analysis, right? I can just say predictive. So when I put predictive there, I can see different models that can be used for predictive analysis. Let me say predictive analysis. It also makes sense if you know the name of the model you are looking for, because then you'll be able to, get the exact thing. So let's say I'm looking for a model. There was this stuff I did the other day, sentiment analysis. So sentiment analysis. So you see, we have like multilingual sentiment analysis. we have different sentiment analysis, from different people. We have like a space. There's something called Hugging Face space where you can at least test, that sentiment analysis. This is let me see, the radio block for aspect-based sentiment analysis. So I can run this. You can actually run things in the Hugging Face space, even down to image models, for image generation. So let me see. This is data set it's currently using. Although I don't know the detail of the data set, but I might be able to. Let me see. I was thinking it would even load up like a couple of examples. Let's see. Okay. So aspects, food, plates, popular is positive. Okay. Um, these are different data sets. Let me just go back here and see it has. Okay. So this is an example of something they are running in a space where they say, give us a house by studio, blah, blah, blah. And it would simply, generate. So this is currently like a model that is used in generating images running within the space here, right? So we can just look for that specific model, click on it and experiment with it right here on Hugging Face. We'll get to look at some of these things later, but the point is that Hugging Face is a centralized repository. Well, I would say it's a central, instead of using the term centralized, I would just say it's a central location where you can where you can find lots of models, right? I love to always look at the choice of words so you don't find it confusing, right? So it's a place where you can, basically see lots and lots of models. You can load them, you can experiment with them, you can even choose to load them into your machine as well, right? Sentiment analysis. Let me try this one. Okay, so I don't think there's a space for that. Let me go to space. Let's say sentiments. Okay, so it's just like, oh, I want to know this particular term, what does it mean? So try out the sentiment analysis model by NLP Town. Okay, let's click on this. Okay, so this is not running. I think there's an error when trying to run this. Let's go back to sentiment analysis. Let's click on this. Okay. All right. So I love using Hugging Face. It's awesome. If I analyze this comment, it's going to say, oh, this is a positive sentiment. I can say, I really dislike, eating in dirty environments. All right. The other day, I visited the restaurant, Lagos, Nigeria, around maybe Lucky 1. The food and the environment. Okay, so if I put up something like this now and I say analyze, it's telling me, oh, this is a negative sentiment. It means, the message that I passed in there is showing a negative, a sentiment as to my experience, right, in that place. So this is just an example. If I say, oh, I love Nigerian. Okay, if I analyze this positive sentiment. Now, it is possible for us to mix, this kind of use cases. This is for sentiments. There's a model. This is running on a model. Probably an LLM, probably not an LLM. In this case, it's not an LLM, right? It's just a simple model that is basically telling us that okay, we are trying to analyze your sentiment based on the input text you give us. So we can tell you if this is positive or negative, and we can give you, confidence level. Confidence level here is important, so you know how confident the model is, in that feedback. If the confidence is not strong enough, then it means you have to be careful with accepting that, feedback from the model because it might be wrong. Okay, so when we are, working on LLM or AI based stuff like this, when it comes to models, we tend to, look at that confidence level feedback. Okay. We would also get to use something like Google AI Studio. If you have not heard of this before, Google AI Studio is just similar to OpenAI platform, Cloud platform, where you can experiment with most of their models. So you see, we have like Nano Banana. This is one of their recent model. This platform is quite straightforward to use as well, right? I'll show you an example. So here you can basically ask questions, get feedback, and use their. You can get to use their API to build like a sample stuff. So let's see. If I say tell me tell me a story. Tell me a story about bubble sort algorithms. Write. Okay. Uh, write a simple fictional. Let's say a simple 20-line fictional story about this. Okay, so let's go. So I just entered a very simple prompt and it's telling me, oh, once upon a time, in a whimsical land of numbers, lived a curious sorting algorithm named bubble sort, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is just, like a simple input output a pattern, right? We can see like the list of models here that we can select from, right? We can select like Gemini 2.5 Pro, Gemini Flash, which is I think their latest release in the list of models. Let's do it this way. So I'm going to click on build. So this is a new feature where you can basically describe what you want to build and it proceeds to generate, like it builds an app for you. You can download the code base even, right? If you have used tools like Lovable, you have used tools like Lovable or maybe Bolt.new, or even their own other tool they launched not quite long ago. I think it's Google Firebase, yeah. So Firebase Studio. They already have Firebase. This is Firebase Studio. Firebase Studio can allow you build, things like that. Bolt can allow you build complete applications, even with your running using Superbase as the backend. Lovable does the same thing. I've built, nice applications with Lovable, applications that I even deployed, even applications for customers, for clients, right? I've built applications with Lovable, with Bolt as well. I've used Bolt most of the I always go with Bolt. I mean, Bolt is my first option even before Lovable. I love using Bolt. And Firebase, Studio this time around, it works in such a way that it can build both backend, front end, and it can even do deployment. Even Flutter, it can build mobile applications for you. So it's a very good tool. On AI Studio, you can simply get your API key and build something, So let me show you. If I click on create API key, I can call this API key class key. I'm going to delete it after the class. So I can just say, oh, create a new project. Let's call this class project. Project will be this particular key. So let's go ahead and create this key. So I'll click on create key. It's going to set up that new key for me. Yeah. So yes, I have the key right here. I can click on the key, copy, right? The key tied to this project. I've not configured billing. I just hope it works. So I've not configured billing yet. And I don't want to configure billing on this particular Chrome profile. But let me quickly jump into just give me a second. So let's look at the documentation. I'm going to pull up my terminal. If you have not written code before, don't be offended, but this is going to be like a simple one, right? So let's just go to my desktop, go to class, and I'll say make directory. Let's call this quick AI code class, okay? So CD, let's pull this up in VS Code, and I'll simply say touch in the py, which is my Python file that I'm going to work with. Most of you don't like light thing. I love light thing. Yeah. Okay, so something is wrong. Sorry, give me a minute. I need to fix this stuff. Yeah. Wait. Where is this perplexity guy? It's disturbing my shortcuts. Okay. That did not quit. Okay. Close it. Okay. All right, let's go back here. And let's say team that. Okay, so I think this is what we like. All right, so you can see there's a simple example here. So let's start by just putting this here. So this is the key I just copied. Let's copy this guy, dump it here. So from Google, we have to install, right? It means we have to install this. We already have our key, so this is going to give us like a simple response. We have not installed this. If I try to run this now by saying Python main, it's telling us cannot find Gen AI. So let's see. Hold on a second. Okay, let's see. I'm going to simply say Python. Sorry. Um, okay, so we're going to simply create like a virtual environment, and we're going to activate that virtual environment. I use Fish Terminal. That's why I'm using Fish, right? If you have watched the tutorials on Python, then yes, I don't think you'll find this confusing at all. So I just activated the virtual environment, right? And I'm using the Fish Terminal, the Fish. What's it called? I'm using the Fish. It's not really the terminal itself is not Fish, but we'll call it the Fish shell, right? Because that's the active shell I'm currently using. We have different shells. By default, Mac uses ZSH, right? Yeah, or Bash. But yeah, I installed the Fish shell and I use Fish. Okay. If you have questions on that, you can ask me later. So right now, I can just say pip install. Let's do. I think that is Google, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, from Google import GenAI. So let's install Google. And yeah, if I try to run this again, yes, it's going to, it's going to tell us that Google no module names. Okay. To this install, let's look at that again. Pip install. Okay, let's make sure that that was installed. Google. Okay, so it says already installed in here. Okay. That was the Python 3. So why am I still getting that error? Let's just check again for the specific, let me see, from Google imports. Look, that's GenAI. Okay, so just give me a minute. Let me do PyPy. Okay, by the way, if you don't know PyPy, this is basically where you can get your packages, right? You can get your packages from. Okay, so let's check this place. I think this is exactly what I just installed.
So maybe your interpreter is still running on the machine Python rather than the virtual environment.
No, it's actually an environment right here. That's why you can see it here, VENV, right? If it's not there, then it would show like this. So um, let me
Okay.
see.
Yeah, something
So
like that.
yes, this is. Mhm.
Mhm.
So that's same thing. Okay, just hold on. Let me try something. And sometimes I actually experience this. It's a terminal thing, by the way. So let me go from like an
Yeah,
external terminal.
I used to experience this too most times.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see desktop class quick code, yeah. And I'll simply say source. Okay. PIP install Google. Already satisfied. Okay. What's that? Oh, okay, let me exit this, so deactivate, and I'll still say PIP install Google. Let's see.
Mhm.
Okay, let's try that again. Okay, cannot import GenAI from Google unknown location. Okay, so I think maybe this is actually coming from this guy. That's quite interesting. Okay, I think I'll just go with this option. Let's just use this option for this class. So this is the regular REST API option, but this time around I have to include this manually in here. So in Python we can use yeah, let's just use requests. PIP install requests. Okay, so we don't spend a lot of time on this. I'm just going to use let's pull up Perplexity again. I'll use it to quickly just generate the code for this. If you have not used Perplexity before, I think I would recommend you try it out. I mean, it simply uses other models. If you can actually configure multiple models here, and it would also give you a more correct answer. It does a lot of good research. So I would say convert this to a Python request code. So yeah, I am specifying this because more recently I also get to use other libraries that can do this, right? A lot of modern developers I see to use. I think it's called, if I'm not mistaken, is it HTTPX? No, yeah, HTTPX pipeline. I think so. um, HTTP clients. Yeah, yeah. So a lot of libraries, a lot of developers I know recently, prefer to just jump into using HTTPX, which works like requests. But yeah, I'm very old in that space, and I've been using requests almost all my life. So I can just copy this, paste it here, throw in our key here. Let's just do that manually for now. So let's throw in the key here, and then we can proceed to test. So this is currently using the model 2.5 Flash, right, for generated context. So if I say explain how AI works in a few words, let's try this since we have installed requests. So if I run this, I think it actually worked, right? Okay, let's see. It says 403 method doesn't allow unregistered callers, with blah, blah, blah. Identity. So let's see. This is most likely because I haven't paid for this, I am sure. Let me confirm. I've been using a lot of their free option for multiple things. So most times when you try to, so let's see. Okay. This particular key. So it's on free tier. At least they would have told me this will not work. Okay, but hold on. Instead of deleting, it actually went off. Okay, that was fast. Class key. Let's do that again. Um, let's select the same project, create. Okay, so I just wanted to see if they specified a particular project. They did not. So this is exactly the same thing. Definitely, it's a usage thing. So you can try this on your end. If you haven't used this so much, I'm sure that should work, right? I don't have a billing plan on that my account. If I have a billing plan, then yes, it would work without having permission denied. Okay. So yeah, if you haven't used it before, go ahead, put in the code. Or maybe it's trying to get this from os.get.env. So let me call this Gemini key, or Gemini API key. Let's do that here. Gemini API key. Save that. Let's see. Yeah, definitely. So just what you can do for me is just experiment with this on your end. Simply, if you already have a Gmail account or an email account or a Google account, sorry, you can just come in here, create a new key and run that test. Okay, so that should work. Let me try this one more time by just having the text here, just like this. Okay, save, run. Invalid arguments. Okay. That is the header Google API key. So I think it's coming from my my accounts basically. Like this is supposed to work. Wait, this is the whole thing.
It's trying to say that you're on a registered account.
Sorry, what did you say? Yeah, text AI learns pattern from data to make decisions and prediction. Okay, so I see where that was coming from. I was using the old when I put in the new stuff. I was still having the old one there. I guess the first one I had there wasn't. Probably I did not paste it correctly or something. But let me try to change the prompts here, explain how AI works in detail, right? Given the context of LLMs. Okay, so let's run that again. Okay, intelligent decisions or predictions. Okay, that's still running. Hmm. Okay, all right. This is exactly what we get on free accounts, anyways. If we're using Grok, I think the Grok free plan is actually more generous. So maybe you can experiment with that using Grok. You can also get sample codes from there. This is actually not working well, and I'm sure it's because of my plan. Let me delete this so that when I mistakenly put money here, someone will not help me to destroy my account. So you can check out Grok. I mentioned it before. Please, you can mute yourself. Yeah, please mute yourself. So you can check out Grok. Grok is an awesome platform. I use it a lot, both for enterprise use cases, simple use cases. Just come on the platform. I think you should go to platform.grok. If I'm not mistaken, it's not platform. Ah, come on. Okay, console. Yeah, console. So I can just click on this. It opens console.grok. Okay, so if you have an account here, all you have to do is maybe just go to API keys and create a new API key. Let me get in here. Okay, all right. So yes, from here I can just go down to API key, create a new API key, select from this is what we'll be using for our class anyways, right? And you would experience how easy it is to use Grok, right? If I click on API key, I just have to create a new one, put in the name, it creates that key for me. And I can simply, select one of these models. These are open models, reasoning models, speech to text. It has speech to text. We can use Whisper. It has text to text. It has multilingual options from here, and it also has models that support tools and function calling. Okay, so yes, it also have text to speech using a Play AI TTS. Okay, so I can just create that key, go to docs, and I'll see like how it's used. If you look at this, you see that they are leveraging OpenAI's OpenAI's library for the tests, right? We can also just use a LangChain, and this is a JavaScript code, so we can switch to Python. Yeah, so we can use LangChain, and it works seamlessly. It works perfectly. Okay, so we would experiment with this. I'm sure. I'm sure maybe in the next class or in a few class from now, we'll definitely do that. Okay, so let me go ahead, jump back here. Let's see, stop sharing. I want to present just one screen so that all of us, where is it? Um, okay, yeah, just the screen. Okay, so back to the whiteboard. I mentioned a couple of things. I mentioned Olama. I think I was supposed to show you guys something in Olama so we can end the session. It's already past 9. I almost forgot. So this is Olama right here. So Olama is currently available for both Windows, Linux, and Mac. You can download this and you can simply pull models that can work on your laptop. Okay, don't pull models that are too heavy for your laptop. It's going to be a waste of your data, waste of your time because you won't be able to run it well. Okay, so this is Olama. We have several models. I can search for Quen, for example. I can see Quen Coda. This is the Quen model for basically, writing codes. It can do a lot of code generation, nice code generation. Um, Depending on the size of the model, models have different sizes. This is 19 gig, Quen Coda 3. This is 30 billion param. This is 480 billion param. This is 290 gig, right? It has more context. It can give you more context and, more input token size, right? So you can throw in more inputs, throw in more tokens, and you expect to also get more because it's large. But then when it comes to running it, it's not about the storage to download. It's about the capacity that your laptop actually has to run this. Most of this requires a lot of processing power. Trust me, your machine cannot process 480 billion per RAM, except you're using a machine from the future, right? But I can tell you it can't. Okay, it can't even process 30B, right? Even my Mac M4, almost I would say almost got burnt, right? Trying to process 30 degrees because I already have like a lot of models running, but yeah. These are things you can simply run it on the cloud. I think they have Olama Cloud more recently, or you can also run it on um, what did I just call this? Hugging Space. Yeah, Hugging Face. Sorry, you can run it on Hugging Face. So if you search for it, say you run it on Hugging Face. So yeah, we have a lot of models, and each of these models have their, I would say, special. I would say they have different areas that they shine, right? I would say they have different areas they shine. Llama is open. Llama is open source. It has multiple. You can check it out. You can check out Llama models. So it will take you to, like, the Llama website. Llama is from Facebook, right? From Meta. So it shows you their models. If I click on download models, it takes me to the page where they have different models, right? Llama 4 is the most recent one. Llama 4 Scout, Llama 4 Maverick, right? Different size. You see different sizes. This is 70 billion per arm, 3.3. This is 3.2, 1 billion and 3 billion per arm. So 405 billion per arm for 3.1 and 8 billion accordingly. So you can experiment with most of them. Don't try to download and run offline. You don't need to do that. You don't have to do that, except you need to. Then yeah, you can experiment with that as well. So speaking about this guy, I'm just going to list out the other stage, or should I say phases, when it comes to your engineering stack here. Okay, so yes, I've mentioned the AI and LLM, or AI and ML layer, sorry. We have the data layer. So the data layer is basically where you have your database, you have your vector databases, or your relational databases like Postgres. If it's for vector, you have like Pinecone, Weaviate, Chroma, or maybe Quadrant. Quadrant is, the one I use all the time. The others are also cool. I just love Quadrant. We have your application layer, and your application layer is where you have, the frameworks, right? The frameworks that you're using to build your API, your front end, your back end, your um, authentication service, and all that, right? If you're using authentication services like Clerk and all those stuff, better odds, right? You can leverage those options. Then you have your infrastructure layer. If you are building maybe on AWS, Google, or Azure, where you have where you deploy your infrastructure, basically infrastructure for your project. So of that layer as well. So this is kind of like the base that I want you to know for now. If there are any other detail, as we keep learning, I would mention most of them. You have to look at it from this angle. What are the foundations, the choice of programming language, and all that? What is your stack when it comes to the AI and ML layer? What is the data layer? Are you going with Postgres or MongoDB? When it comes to vector for doing things that we call embedding, are you going with Pinecone? These are tools, these are platforms. You can check them out. When it comes to the application layer, going with Fast API or Flask, right? Or any other framework that you're familiar with, Django. For me, I always recommend Fast API anyways. And when it comes to infrastructure, are you going with Azure, Google, or AWS, right? So yes, these are decisions that we've learned to make as we keep training. I wanted to, dive deeper into, like talking about the product lifecycle for AI products. Like I mentioned it in the last class, but we did not dive into it. But we don't have much time. It's already past 40 minutes. My plan was for 40 minutes. Now I think it's already past an hour, right? The session started around 10 minutes past 8. So we'll stop here for now, and we will continue in the next session. And I would most likely also jump into Git and GitHub. Even though there's a video for it, please watch the video so that by the time we get to that class, I'll just run through, right? And then also answer your questions if you have questions, okay? Yeah, let's stop here for now. I will see you in the next class. Thanks a lot for joining. Thank you very much, guys. Maka, thanks for being patient with me and the fact I take a lot of time. Thank you. Let's have a wonderful evening. Bye, guys. Bye.